Jiro here for Umbra Games with a review of Uncharted 4, A Thief's End on PlayStation 4, the alleged conclusion of the Uncharted series that focuses on adventure and treasure seeker Nathan Drake. I use a true 0 to 100 scale in my ratings, with 50 being average, and while my reviews of Uncharted 2 at 78 and Uncharted 3 at 69 have made over the last year have been positive, they weren't games that I was just dying to play the moment they came out. Objectively though, the grand scale, the characters, and Naughty Dog's ever-increasing production values have kept the series sailing really high, and with the move to a next-generation console, I was wholeheartedly ready to see how far Naughty Dog could push it. Uncharted 4 gives us a married Nate and Elena living in the suburbs, having retired from the dangerous life of adventure. Now for spoilers' sake, I won't mention what drags them in, but obviously we wouldn't have a game if they weren't. This Uncharted takes us to Panama, Italy, Scotland, and Madagascar, through mountains, deserts, jungles, catacombs, and caves, ultimately searching for the lost pirate treasure of Captain Henry Avery. Sully 2 is of course there for Nate again.
Nobody cares if you're smoking indoors.
And a retconned brother, Sam Drake, is along for the ride as well.
I'll be goddamned.
Another rich villain arises with a private army, stealing clues from the Drakes and, for once, forging ahead occasionally as he tries to race the Drakes to the prize. All the usual plot twists and turns are here, and the overall plot structure hasn't really changed much for the series, but I guess there's some comfort and familiarity. And still, this game gives us quite the ride. There's some lengthy cutscenes in this game, and there are a lot of moments that are there for just reminiscing previous adventures, as the curtain closes on the Uncharted series, so be prepared for that. I personally enjoyed all the cutscenes though. The dialogue is very well written, the voice actors are extremely on point, and the technology Naughty Dog has put into the smallest facial tics and micro-expressions are a marvel to see. Drake continues to be one of the most likable video game characters in both his sense of humor and unwavering character, so when he faces heartache and struggles, it's easy to be empathetic, which I don't know many games I can really say that about. So looking at gameplay, our four main Uncharted mechanics are back. We have our climbing and platform seeking. We take Nate from ledge to ledge the way we have been previously, some that are obvious and some that aren't. But at some point in the last few years since 3, Nate has taken up the art of throwing rope, as he can now use a grappling hook at specific places during particular climbs. We also have slippy slidey areas of rock and mudslides that often bar the way that require a little more planning with your platforming. Yeah, I'm sorry, that took me back to the PlayStation Tomb Raider days. In the last third of the game, Drake also comes across a piton that he can use to make a handhold in pockmarked rock should a handhold be absent. Again, nothing revolutionary, but it does change up the gameplay a bit and kind of revitalize it. Nate almost always has one of his companions traveling with him, which in some games can be annoying. In Uncharted 4, however, your teammates are generally pretty good about going where they need to go and giving you a boost or throwing things down to help you climb up. And even if you're shimmying across a ledge and they're blocking your way, Nate will go over them, so they never stop your progress. Of course, it seems like the grappling hook could have probably solved most of the team traversal situations. I guess artificial blockage would be a good term for it, like Lara Croft needing a key for a 3-foot gate. But it all worked out and the gameplay works nonetheless. Our second mechanic, of course, is the combat. And I think it's here where we see the game's biggest overhaul. While the basic hold a main weapon and sidearm are back, there's now an orange X that appears in your reticle when enemies die. As with previous entries, if you're not using a powerful gun and or the enemy has a helmet, your one-hit headshot doesn't always do the trick. If you're using a machine gun and not making the accurate headshots, it's not always easy to tell when you're shooting an enemy that's in cover whether you finish them or not. And now those days are over. Stealth has gotten the biggest overhaul as enemies now have a white meter over their heads when they see you, and once that fills up, they'll go yellow and then orange and start shooting and chasing you. If you can run and climb and get away fast enough, they'll lose track of you and it will reset your stealth mode. You can also hide in the beautifully animated tall grass areas, so you can stalk your prey and take them down quietly. You can also mark your targets as you see them to help keep track and take them down quietly and efficiently. Once again, I say the best stealth games are the ones that let you stealth all you can and then loudly decimate the rest, and Uncharted 4 lets you do just that. Fortunately, the aforementioned AI teammates will be in stealth when you are, and even though they're often worse at it than I was, you aren't noticed for their plain sight terrain traversal. The team attacks for melee are pretty fun, as are their responses when you get put into a headlock. As my other main issue with previous combat mechanics in the Uncharted games was the melee being like a QuickTime event, showing you what button to push when. It's now been simplified to one button attack and one break grapple. While I kind of miss a good counterattack, it did make the action flow more smoothly. Puzzle solving is our third mechanic, and Uncharted 4 has some great ones. I love the added minor detail of seeing Nate actually take out a number 2 pencil and sketch and write things down in his journal. The interactivity of pieces of paper in the journal is also a fun addition, letting you do some trial and error on paper before you start moving levers or having to draw it out yourself. I'm not sure you could stick enough puzzles into an Uncharted game to satisfy me. There could always be more. They're always so elaborate and well done. I've always wondered, though, how some of these ancient places Drake goes to could have such solid engineering that lasts hundreds of years. I mean, my garage door broke the other week, and it's only 10 years old. Not sure how some of these contraptions can last for centuries, and they kind of exploit... Okay, well, I won't say anything more than that. Finally, for Uncharted, I have the walking around mechanic. These are parts of the game where we walk around and interact with items and kind of advance the story. I think these sections were used much better in this installment as we get nostalgic with old Nate, and we really get to see into the mind and life of young Nate, enriching his character even more, and solving some of the riddles presented by Uncharted 3. So as Nate travels with his companions, there will be times that a bubble will appear above their head, and you can press the triangle button to trigger more conversation. This is in addition to the random quips and banter. There was one point where I was driving a vehicle, for example, and Sully was telling a story, and I hated to jump out in the middle of it to stop and explore some ruins, but I did it anyway. As I was exploring, I was thinking, wouldn't that be great if Nate apologized for interrupting when he jumped back in the Jeep, and then Sully would continue the story? And then he did just that. Funny how that works.
Sully, you were saying?
I'd left the Jeep to further search for the 109 treasures spread throughout the game, again denoted by a sparkle you can glimpse out of the corner of your eye. With the level of graphics this time around, I caught many false positives thinking I'd see a treasure in the corner when it was just the sun reflecting off of something. Can't complain about that. With the levels being so much bigger in size, Uncharted 4 really makes you work for those hidden relics, and I think I ended the game with only about 39. There are also journal entries that Nate will make over specific things, and notes and letters you can find that add more depth and history to the story and its main players. All conversations, treasure, journal entries, and notes you find will give you points to unlock character skins, models, and concept art from the main menu. I always think it's fun when a game rewards you with extra non-essential goodies like that. But speaking of the large levels, I don't know if it was an illusion or not, but most seem to have multiple paths to a destination, which is a vast improvement over the corridor-based levels of earlier entries. Several of the levels were just giant maps that you could choose how to navigate yourself, which really made me want an open world Uncharted. But I guess on that note, that's the direction the newest Tomb Raider reboots went. My final talking point about this game is the graphics, and wow, there are very few games that I will stop in the middle and take screenshots, but so many of these vistas just completely captivated me. From the lush jungles, to the wavering trees, to the mountains and the cities. Now, I'm not sure if it was coincidental or if Naughty Dog was just trying to toot their own horn, but multiple times the in-game dialogue would be comments on the view. Found it pretty humorous. But yeah, the level of detail here is just astounding. And after seeing what they pushed on the Uncharted series on PlayStation 3, I was right in anticipating being blown away now. Now, it does run at 30 frames per second during the single-player campaign, but I think the end result made it worth it. Bravo. Oh yeah, there are some multiplayer options as well. I fired up the tutorial, but really wanted to get this review completed so I didn't spend too much time on it. You can use your points gained from gathering treasure and KOing enemies to buy supernatural abilities and AI assistance during matches on the fly. From what I can tell, Naughty Dog is promising free multiplayer DLC in the future, but offer microtransactions for unlocking items that would normally come from progression. So in the end, everyone will have access to everything, just people with more disposable income will be able to access it faster if they so choose. Overall, Uncharted 4 hit all of the beats it needed to with me. It looks like they took all the things that I considered frustrations in previous series and just overhauled them. Except for rolling in clean to cover being the same button. I mean, we had a heartwarming story, good character interaction, a great conclusion to the series, and the game was just really fun to play. At first I was pretty opposed to Nate's brother coming out of the woodwork as he'd never been mentioned before, but I was satisfied by Nate's rationale of never talking about him before, even to his wife. This game is probably the best looking console game to date that I've seen. Uncharted 4, like its predecessors, fall into a third-person shooter, platformer hybrid, and rated accordingly on my scale lands at an 88 out of 100. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. Just a little tidbit about Umbra Games. I review every game I play that I'm completing for the first time, and started July of 2015 making videos for them, this being number 40. I work toward objective reviews, providing criticism that's fact, with of course a little subjective reaction that I usually try to note. I often can find at least one system that a game does right, and often use the saying, it doesn't suck just because you don't like it. I got tired of the gimmicky reviews or ones that didn't provide a deep enough dive into features or gameplay, and decided with a little persuasion from my friends to take the time and do this. I'll play pretty much every genre of game from any era, and do it from my personal collection of currently nearly 3,000 titles. If you'd like notifications of when reviews are posted, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. You can also follow me on Twitter @UmbraGames to see what I'm playing next, or even make requests for reviews. Thanks again.
Yeah, brilliant. Let's get it open.